Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Dean Carter, and we're going to be talking about his great book, Employee Experience Design, How to Create Work Where People and Organizations Thrive, which is published through Wiley. Dean, thank you so much for coming on today. What a wonderful book you've written with your co-authors.
Thank you so
Where
much.
can people find you?
You can find me, best way to find me is on LinkedIn. We do have a website called employeeexperiencedesignbook.com. So you can get information about the book there, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
So first question, what was the inspiration behind the book?
We did not want to write a book. None of us. We thought, oh my gosh, the last thing the world needs is another business book. But we, it started with our, one of the co-authors, Samantha Gadd. She heard a podcast from Mark Levy years ago about his work at Airbnb. Mm. And then that really set her off. And she was doing a lot of consulting at that time in New Zealand. And she built an entire practice around this concept of employee experience design. She changed the name of her company. And then years later, she thought, I really want to codify this. Like, what is employee experience design particularly? And so she called Mark, called a bunch of other people to meet in Austin to create a manifesto on employee experience. And then Mark called me and said, if we're doing a conversation on employee experience, you need to be in the room. So we got together in Austin and wrote a manifesto with a bunch, probably 30 leading heads of HR on what is employee experience and how you define it. What is it? How do you drive it? How do you measure it? And after I was having a conversation with Mark. I thought, I don't want to write a book. I certainly don't want to write it by myself, but it feels like we wrote it. Like the manifesto is all the chapters. You got 12 chapters. There's an intro, there's a close, and there's a call to action. It's basically, why don't we take the manifesto and turn that into a book? And he's like, I don't want to write a book either. So anyhow, we wrote it. We thought we'd sell 6 copies. And within, one LinkedIn post, it was, the #1 bestseller on Amazon in 2 HR categories. And we're just delighted at the response. And, Tim, I think this moment when employee experience is in the tank, and it hasn't been coming up, like it's been drowning for a very long time in the tank. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And what I hope is we didn't intend it, but it kind of hit at just the right time, I think, for a lot of places to go, okay, what are some options? And there's stories from Patagonia and certainly stories from Airbnb, but there's lots of stories in there that
stories in there, yeah.
There are a lot of stories. And so we wanted to share lots of, not just our stories, because people are certainly interested in Airbnb, Patagonia, but I really want to go, there are lots of people doing amazing things in this space. So that's how we wrote the book. And it was a lot of fun. We had one rule. If this gets in the way of our friendship, the book is dead.
Right.
So no arguments, no nothing. We're just gonna have a really good time with this book, and that's it. And we actually had a really good time with it.
I'm going to ask you a little bit about one of the stories in a bit, because you mentioned it on our preparation call, which I really want to look. But I want to just dig in and ask you some questions. So you emphasize that EX, so employee experience, should be co-created with employees rather than designed for them. Yeah. What's the biggest hurdle for traditional leaders in letting go of that top-down control?
Best practice. Best practice. Everyone wants to default to like what some other consulting did that is the average of a bunch of companies that they talk to. And the best practice is the right practice. I've never seen an employee experience that's designed for one company that fits for another company. For example, when I was at Patagonia, I visited a friend of mine who was the head of HR for a gaming company. And so I went in there and it was just like lights blinking and like scoreboards and Red Bull and vodka and popcorn. And it was just loud and dark and people had headphones on and no one was outside. The picnic table's empty. The trees outside were dead. Like, just like, and I thought, oh my gosh, if anyone from Patagonia worked for this company, they would die. It would be the worst experience of their life. And if anyone from this came to Patagonia, they would die. It would just be the worst experience of their life. So I think, and I'll talk about some ways we engaged employees when we found out they were not having a good experience on the micro level versus the macro level, which I'm talking about right now. But it is you have to design it specifically. You have to listen to employees, and they will tell you what experiences need to change. And I've never found a single solution. It's a challenge with sometimes the engagement survey. You have to do an answer to the average of everyone in the company, which only applies to probably 30% of the company. When you really get down to it, every single team has an issue on employee experience that you can address and fix and work through. So we have to be a lot more bespoke, a lot less here, a lot more here, and let people drive it.
At Patagonia, you were famous for the put more in than you take out philosophy. How does employee experience design provide a scalable framework for companies that don't have a nature first mission? Because everybody says, oh, yeah, that's Patagonia. Oh, you all go surfing and stuff like that. We're different.
Right. I do get the Patagonia. There's like the first thing, where do you work? Patagonia, like, ooh. And then I'm talking about this, and it's like, and then it's the eye roll,
Yeah.
So I get that. I do want to, there's a couple examples that aren't Patagonia, and I want to share that. I'm going to share my most challenging example. And I was the head of HR for Sears, not just Sears, but Sears and Kmart. Those were dying brands when I got there, and they were on their deathbed at the moment that I arrived. We all knew it. We were doing layoffs. The head of the company had just voted like the worst leader on the planet. Like this was not a purpose-driven company. It was like stay alive. It was, we had huge amounts of turnover, lots of people leaving, and I was trying to figure out what to do and how do I create an amazing experience, at least for my team. I can't control everything at Sears and Kmart, but maybe my team. So I went to my team and said, okay, we're on the Titanic. And I can't change it. We've hit the iceberg. This thing is going down. There's water in the boiler. Like and everyone on this boat is screaming, and they're all like scared and terrified. And here's what I know you came here for, because you're in human resources. You came here for the humans and to support them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be the band. We're going to be the band on the Titanic. And we're going to be here for all these people. And you're going to be the best trombone player, and best tuba player, and best singer, best piano player, best cymbal player. And at the end of this thing, I promise you, every single one of you are going to get a boat that's better than one that we got on. I promise. So let's do amazing HR. And I want you to have an amazing experience. I want you to learn and grow. And I want you to be so much better as a result of this experience. And let's just do it. And 6,000 people jumped in and played the band. And we won awards for the work that we were doing. We had highly innovative things that companies are replicating today. It was a really spectacular moment. And the people would talk about now, retro, that those 5 years at Sears were the best years of their life and the best years of their career on the Titanic. So if you can, Patagonia, yes. And by the way, in Patagonia, the HR team was in a double wide on the edge of campus. So it's not like we lived in the, it's like, it wasn't like, rock star place to, work in. But we lived in, and we worked in a palace in Sears. It's a really amazing place with waterfalls and, gourmet food and swans in a lake. And still, all those amazing things for employee experience were really challenged. And you really had to focus on their needs at the moment. So that's my story. You can do amazing things that Patagonia did. And I can talk about those, which could be Patagonia or anywhere. But you can do it in the worst situation possible and still drive amazing experience.
Your book adapts the double diamond design process. So discover, define, develop, and deliver. Which of these 4 stages do HR departments typically fail at most often, and why?
Well, the beginning and the end. I think that they just jump in to solution really, really quick without going into the understanding exactly what they're designing. So they go to best practice, they read some article on HBR, and they're like, let's do that. Or they've just hired some company that says, here's, we've got the answer. And then they let them kind of do what they need to do. So that's first thing. The other part is measuring. it's very hard to measure employee experience. And the best tool that we've had in the past is the employee experience survey, which is, I compare this to showing up in Chicago in July and saying, what do you think about the weather? We're going to get ready. We're going to return to Chicago. So I want you to look around and get ready to return at some point. I want you to talk to people and find out what they're wearing, look around. And then I want you to get ready for your next trip because I want you to prepare for the next experience. I want you to meet me on February 15th next year. So they show up ready for everything they saw and everything they learned in July, and they're going to freeze to death in February. So that to me, that's the example of the survey. You take in a photo of a moment in time that's relevant for the moment, is completely irrelevant 6 months later or 6 days later. So that's the big challenge, I think, is really getting down to measuring employee experience and knowing what the impact you're going to have. And it gets a bad rap because we just start at like our experience score changed. We went from 72 to 78. Who cares? Like what? How did it impact the business? Did it impact innovation? Did it impact revenue? Did it impact profit? Did it impact intent to stay? Those are the things that we forget to tie it to on deliver.
In product design, we fail fast with prototypes. How can a people leader prototype a new cultural initiative or flexible work policy without causing chaos or breaking trust?
Oh, I've had one example of a horrible failure and another example of a wild success. So this particular example is one where at Patagonia, our climbers and skiers are leaving. And we need them desperately because to design, specifically on product design, to design a great product you ski in, you had better be a skier.
Right.
And if you can't design things that look pretty, because if they fall apart and don't work on the mountain, then that you die.
You die, yeah.
You die. So if it's not cold, not warm enough, you die. So the stakes are pretty high in terms of high quality, and you got to know it. So they were leaving, and we went to them and said, "Why are you leaving?" They said, "Well, we're leaving because we love to climb and ski. You hired us for what we love, and you're in Ventura, and everyone around here surfs. And so great. The ocean's beautiful, but we're not ocean people. We're mountain people and climbers. And to do that, if we leave on Saturday morning, by the time we get there Saturday night, and then we kind of maybe get a run or two in, it's time to come back to work on Sunday. We just don't have time. So we came up. I said, "What's the solution?" I'm like, well, if we had more time off, like, could we do that?" So we worked with them and decided to experiment with a 4-day work week, which was this was 15 years ago.
No.
And we decided this was the structure of it. We were going to close every other Friday. Actually, close every other Friday, everything, because we didn't want some people working and some people not working.
Yeah.
And then the other Friday, we worked a half day. So we basically took work and condensed it into 4 days. We didn't chop off a day. So you still worked, 80 hours across 2 weeks. Then here's what we did. We measured it. So we said, let's talk about the experience you're having right now. Let's look at productivity, innovation, collaboration, productivity, all those things. And also let's ask some things about your life, because this is really what we're trying to impact. Do you have time to do the things that you love? Do you have time to climb and ski? And then we went a little bit further than that. We asked, do you, what's your relationship and how does work impact your relationship with your spouse? How does work impact the time you spend with your kids? How does work impact the time you get to go to the doctor and dentist? How does work impact the time you get to buy healthy food? All these things about just a good life. We implemented the 4-day work week. We took the survey again 8 months later. I feel like company has impacted positively my relationship with my spouse, went up by 70%. I feel like the company gives me more time to spend with my children, went up 90%. I have the ability to spend more time and do the things that I love, went up 92%, and our climbers and skiers stayed, and so did everyone else. Became the most sticky benefit. So one thing we can never take away, but productivity and innovation went up slightly. And so we had improvements in productivity, innovation, collaboration, and every single indicator about, life improved too. And this is a lot, this where the concept of giving back, and the question that we developed as a result of that was, as a result of what I put into my work, I believe the company gives back equal or greater value to my life.
Yeah.
This is the regenerative question that evolved from that moment. So that's just an example of, we took something, we took a challenge, we worked with employees to design it, we measured it, and we used measuring tools that no one else had measured before. That's really critical. You may not have the tools available to measure what typically people measure. So think differently about that. And then we tested it. If it didn't work, we would have done something differently. So it worked wildly, which was our big surprise. And so there's a big learning for me in that. And guess how much money that cost us? Nothing.
Okay.
Zero. We get a massive value of benefit that the cost to the company was zero. Like, so you can do things. You don't have to buy a lot of ping pong tables and more snacks. As a matter of fact, there's not a single ping pong table at Patagonia. And you can't buy snacks. No Doritos, no ice cream, and no dessert, no cookies. No, not even a soda. Like, those are like, people go, I want sodas. You're like, no, you can't have a soda. This is a sustainable place. You can't have a soda here. We want an ice cream machine. No, we don't have sugar here. We don't even have meat. So there were like things about the employee experience were designed, for Patagonia that we said no. Because if we said we're saving the planet, it doesn't make any sense to do these things that don't do that in line with our values. And if you want ice cream and ping pong tables, go work for someone else. This is the experience we're driving specifically for you. And yeah, those are like,
No, it's great.
They
I mean,
they want the ice cream machine back. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not coming back ever.
So with the rise of remote and hybrid work, the physical office is fractured. You actually talk about this in the book in
Yes.
Patagonia, because you've got different people who like, as you say, some people like skiing, some people like surfing, and that. How do you create a cohesive experience when the workforce is never in the same room?
Couple things. After Patagonia, I left and went to a company called Guild, which is another B Corp. The founder and CEO of Guild decided after COVID that they were going to be a remote first company. So everyone could live basically where they wanted to live and continue to live and do that. So they still kept their corporate office, which was vacant. There were a few people in Denver who still came to work. But we had the same challenge everyone else had, which was, I feel alone, I feel depressed, I don't feel like I've got a community, I don't feel connected, and I don't want to come back to work. I want to come back to the office. I still want to live in Montana. And so I gave the problem to a group of people on my team. They said, can you figure out a solution to this? Do we have to accept this? And here's what they came up with. They had several ideas. Again, we tested this, which was this concept of a job that doesn't exist called a community captain. And so they found out using an analysis, there were clusters of employees that lived an hour and a half away. And so they created community captains. They took off 20% of their work for their job. They gave them more pay and said, create community, whatever you think about, and let this group create it. Let them design it themselves. We did that. And across the company, belonging went up. I feel like I belong went up 13 points across the entire company. That's when belonging was in the tank for every other company. Engagement went up 6 points. And that's when we had gone down every year for 3 years. So my point of that story is first you have to measure everything. I don't do anything unless we do a pre and post. Second thing is sometimes when solutioning, you can't use the same tools you used in the past. If we use just the job descriptions we had in the past, we never would have solved that challenge. Third thing is you have to think differently. When you work differently, you have to think differently and actually find really smart employees and they have a solution.
Yeah.
It's still there today. So someone said, oh yeah, I was hired for a guild and I went to Chicago and the community's like, hey, come on, we got a few things planned this weekend. We're going to do this. So it still endures. So does the 4-day week. When you really do experiences that are aligned with purpose, aligned with a company that makes sense, and you statistically improve them with data that they work, they endure.
Excellent. Dean, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. I really enjoyed the book.
Thank you so much.
This is it. It's employee experience design: how to co-create work where people and organizations thrive. Published through Wiley. If I wanted to get a copy of this, where can I get one from?
You can get them from your favorite local bookstore, which there's a place to get things from there. You can order from them, which I love. You can also get from Amazon and Walmart and Target and pretty much Barnes and Noble. They all carry it. I went into
your local bookstore would be the best place to get it.
Go to your local bookstore and ask for it, and they can get it. And there's also a way you can buy online and assign it to your local bookstore. So there's some really cool things. I prefer local bookstores. We got some wonderful ones here in Santa Barbara. But if you want access in another way, there are lots of ways to get the book. You just put in employee experience design or my name, and you can usually find the book. And Barnes and Noble. I went in the one in Los Angeles, and like, we're totally sold out. We're trying to order it again, so we're getting more copies. I'm like,
there you go. What a great problem. Dean, so where can we find you? On LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is a great way to find me because if I change companies or do things, I'm really active on LinkedIn, and you can always find me there. And I check all your messages too.
And we've had one comment today from LinkedIn user. It basically, if it comes across as LinkedIn user, you have to give LinkedIn permission to share your data. Anyway, the comment is, that is a wonderful example of empowerment.
Well, thank you.
And thank you so much for the comment. So Dean, thank you so much for coming on. I love the book. It's special. And thank you for coming on and talking to us today.
Thank you so much. We want it to be special. We want it to be human, real, practical, and like beat up and worn out and used, and like that. We didn't want it to be a paperweight.